In the 19th century, among the ruins of the ancient city of Nineveh, in what is now Iraq, archaeologists uncovered some clay tablets that recount the story of Sargon I of Akkad. Known as the Legend of Sargon, these tablets recount how over 4,000 years ago, Sargon, an abandoned child from humble beginnings, rose to become the legitimate ruler of the first known empire in history, the Akkadian Empire. But how did an unknown orphan rise to become one of the most captivating and mysterious kings of the ancient world? To fully grasp the story of Sargon, it is important to briefly review the historical context of Mesopotamia prior to his reign. The region of Mesopotamia gets its name from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Mesopotamia is made up of two Greek words, mesos meaning middle, and potamos meaning river. So Mesopotamia translates to land between rivers. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers offered a vast amount of fertile land that allowed the people living in those areas to thrive. However, despite the land's rich fertility, it demanded extensive labor and effort to build canals and other hydraulic infrastructures to make agriculture possible. This is because the Tigris and Euphrates rivers originate from the melting snow of the Taurus Mountains in southern Turkey, causing their floods to occur in spring, before the harvest can be gathered. As a result, it was vital to build hydraulic systems like canals to prevent river overflow, which could devastate both the harvest and the cities. Furthermore, while agricultural output was abundant, many essential raw materials were not found locally and had to be imported. For instance, the Mesopotamian Valley had no forests, so timber had to be brought in from elsewhere. There were also no sources of metal or stone, as Mesopotamia is a flat plain with only the two rivers running through it. Within this context, between 3750 and 3250 BCE, several cities began to emerge along the course of the Euphrates, as it was the gentler of the two rivers. These were among the earliest cities on earth: the Sumerian cities of Ur, Uruk, Lagash, Kish, Eridu, and Nippur. The Sumerians were the first civilization to establish themselves in Mesopotamia, ushering in the dawn of human civilization. In summary, these cities emerged to capitalize on the natural resources at their disposal, such as fresh water and fertile soil. At the same time, they developed as a response to the region's shortcomings. In essence, they were founded to organize the large labor force required for agriculture and long-distance trade, exporting surplus goods and importing the essential raw materials they lacked. The Sumerian cities functioned as independent city-states, each governed by an En, which translates to priest-king. This leader held both political and religious authority, concentrating religious and political power in a single person. Consequently, temples stood as the most prominent and significant structures within these ancient cities. These temples, known as ziggurats, were surrounded by numerous other buildings that served as storage facilities, archives, residences, and centers for economic and political administration. By the 3rd millennium BCE, political and religious power began to secularize, meaning the roles of king and high priest were separated. As a result, the administrative center of the city shifted from the temple to the palace. The peak of Sumerian civilization occurred between 2900 and 2350 BCE, a period when Western Europe was still emerging from the Neolithic and the Copper Age was just beginning. The historical importance and influence of the Sumerian civilization are vast, but here is a brief overview. The Sumerians invented the wheel, created the first astronomical maps of the sky, and developed the sexagesimal number system, which continues to play a crucial role today. They also established the practice of sealing documents with stamps. Above all, they developed the first writing system in history around 5,300 years ago, the cuneiform writing, the emergence of which marks the end of prehistory and the beginning of history, according to historians. Over the centuries, the N was replaced by the Lugal, meaning warrior king. By the middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, the Sumerian cities began to wage war against each other. The kings of the city-states aimed to expand their domains and establish the first states, uniting multiple city-states under a single government. One such example is Kisal-Si, the Lugal of Uruk, who succeeded to conquer the cities of Ur and Kish. Meanwhile, the Sumerians were surrounded by Semitic-speaking peoples. As the Sumerian city-states engaged in wars of conquest, the Semitic populations began to apply pressure on the Sumerian cities located in the lower basin of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This period of turmoil culminated in the 24th century BCE with the rise of Lugal-Zaggisi, the ruler of Umma, who succeeded in taking revenge on the city of Lagash, avenging a humiliating defeat from the past. But above all, Lugal-Zaggisi managed to conquer most of the Sumerian cities and unite them under a single sovereign. And just when Lugal-Zaggisi was on the verge of eliminating the tradition of city-states and thus creating the first empire in history, at that very moment, our protagonist appeared, Sargon, one of the most fascinating figures in Mesopotamian history. Sargon was not his original name, which has been lost to history. The name Sargon was a title he adopted upon ascending to the throne, and it is a contraction of Sharum Kin, a Semitic word that could be translated as legitimate king or true king. In other words, it signified the rightful ruler, the chosen one by the gods to reign. The story of Sargon was shared across all Mesopotamian civilizations for millennia, yet Sargon, the ruler chosen by the gods, was not Sumerian. He was Akkadian, that is, a Semitic individual from one of the groups living alongside the Sumerians. The legend of Sargon, recounted in the first person, narrates the life story of this enigmatic king. It was discovered by archaeologists Hormuzd Rassam and Sir Austen Henry Layard, although some attribute the discovery to archaeologist Sir Henry Rawlinson. The find took place in the 19th century among the archaeological remains of the library of Ashurbanipal, one of the great kings of Assyria. It was written on several clay tablets dating back to the 7th century BCE, but most scholars agree that these were likely copies of the original text, which was probably composed during Sargon's era in the 24th century BCE. The legend tells that to the north of the Sumerian Empire, near the city of Kish, there was a priestess of the goddess Inanna, the Sumerian deity of love and beauty. This same goddess would later be known as Ishtar by the Babylonians, Aphrodite by the Greeks, and Venus by the Romans. This is just one of many examples of how Sumerian culture and civilization left a lasting influence on the societies that emerged later in the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean. But let's return to the priestess of the goddess Inanna. It seems she had an affair and became pregnant, breaking her vow of chastity, as priestesses were forbidden from engaging in sexual relations. Filled with shame for both herself and the child, she secretly gave birth and, unable to keep him, placed the newborn in a basket and set it adrift in the waters of the Euphrates. The current carried the baby downstream, but he did not drown. Instead, he was rescued by Aki, a humble gardener serving the king of Kish, who adopted him and raised him as his own son. You're probably familiar with the story of the abandoned child placed in a basket and thrown into the river, as it appears in several myths and stories that came later. One example is the story of Moses, who was set adrift in a basket on the Nile and rescued by the Pharaoh's daughter while she was bathing. A similar tale is found in the legend of Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. The twins, also children of a priestess, were cast into a basket and abandoned in the Tiber River. where they were saved by a she-wolf named Luperca, who nurtured and cared for them. Therefore, this is yet another example that despite the enormous chronological and physical distance between the Sumerians and us, their culture has endured to the present day. The Sumerians were the starting point for the rest of the civilizations of the Fertile Crescent, and Mesopotamian myths, legends, and stories spread throughout the entire Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. But let's go back to the young Sargon, rescued and adopted by Akki. As you might expect, Sargon grew into a handsome, tall, and strong young man. His striking appearance caught the attention of the Sumerian king of the city of Kish, the northernmost of the Sumerian cities. At that time, Kish, like most Sumerian cities, was under the control of Lugal-Zaggisi, the king of Umma, and was part of what could almost be considered a Sumerian empire. As I mentioned, the king of Kish, named Ur-Zababa, noticed him and appointed him as his cupbearer, a prestigious role within his court. It is known that, for the Assyrians shortly afterward, the cupbearer was the king's most trusted individual, so it's likely that the same applied to the Sumerians. Thus, despite his humble beginnings, Sargon quickly climbed the social ladder. The legend goes on to say that one night, Sargon experienced a mysterious dream in which the goddess Inanna appeared to him. To recall, Inanna was the Sumerian goddess of love and beauty. In the dream, she told Sargon that his king, Ur-Zababa of Kish, would die drowned in his own blood, and that Sargon himself was destined one day to become king. Sargon, who despite exuding authority and majesty, perhaps showed some naivety and indiscretion, for as soon as he woke up, he rushed to Ur-Zababa and anxiously told him the dream he had just experienced. Needless to say, Ur-Zababa was not pleased, as he understood that the dream prophesied Sargon would become king after his death. Immediately, Ur-Zababa assigned Sargon a mission. He handed him a tablet containing a secret message and instructed him to deliver it to Lugal-Zaggisi of Umma, the ruler of the Sumerian kingdom. Ur-Zababa emphasized that Sargon must not read the message under any circumstances, as its contents were highly confidential, and that he was to ensure it reached Lugal-Zaggisi personally. As a loyal servant to the king of Kish, Sargon obediently traveled to Umma to deliver the message to Lugal-Zaggisi. What Sargon did not know was that on the tablet Ur-Zababa had given him, it read, "When you receive this, you must immediately kill the bearer of the tablet." Sargon delivered the message to Lugal-Zaggisi, who read the tablet and understood the deadly instructions. And just at this very moment, at the most crucial moment in the story, the tablet that tells the legend of Sargon is broken. As a result, we don't know how the story continues. What did Lugal-Zaggisi of Umma do next? How did Sargon manage to survive that situation? While we don't know how the tablet continues, we do know for certain how the story ends, with Sargon, who, as a reminder, was not a Sumerian but a Semite, overthrowing Lugal-Zaggisi and becoming king. But Sargon did not become just any king. He became Sargon I of Akkad, the true king, the quintessential ruler of the Mesopotamian civilizations, a king who is referred to as an ideal for centuries in Mesopotamian narratives, a king who built an empire far larger than that of Lugal-Zaggisi of Umma, an empire that included all of the Sumerian cities, but also expanded its borders considerably, giving rise to history's first multinational empire, as its subjects included not only the Sumerians, but also neighboring Semitic peoples. The legend of Sargon replaced any biographical truth that may have existed, and, over time, became the truth. There is no way to know if any of the things Sargon claims about his early life in the inscription are true. Whoever Sargon was, and wherever he came from, is obscured by the legend, which is the only known source offering his biography. Historians suggest that the legend of Sargon was designed to win the favor of the Sumerian people. It's important to remember that Sumer had a very strict social hierarchy, where only a small elite enjoyed comfortable lives, while the majority worked from dawn to dusk. In such a social situation, an aspiring ruler who was the son of a single mother, with no known father, abandoned and taken in by a humble gardener, would have resonated much more with the people than any other member of the elite class that ruled the cities at the time. But although we don't know his real origin, we do know his legacy. So, what about the historical Sargon? What do we know for certain about his reign? At the end of the 19th century, an inscription was discovered in the city of Nippur that describes Sargon's victory over Lugalzagesi's armies in the crucial Battle of Uruk. This inscription, called the Victory Stele of Sargon, dates back to the old Babylonian Empire, meaning it was created more than 500 years after Sargon's reign. This tablet states, Sargon, king of Akkad, steward of the goddess Inanna, king of Kish, chosen by Anu, lord of the land, governor of Enlil, defeated the city of Uruk and destroyed its walls. In the Battle of Uruk, he won, captured Lugalzagesi, king of Uruk, during the battle, and led him by a collar to the gate of Enlil. In other words, Sargon took Lugalzagesi, chained by the neck, to Nippur. The battle likely took place around 2340 BCE. According to sources, Sargon had about 5,000 men, while Lugalzagesi commanded 13,500 soldiers. Despite the numerical superiority, Lugalzagesi's forces were defeated, as the Sumerians, accustomed to close combat with spears, swords, and shields, were no match for the Akkadian archers, who were also much better trained. Additionally, the Akkadians skillfully employed war chariots to encircle, break, or harass the enemy forces. In this regard, Sargon established the military practice of combining different types of forces into more flexible formations, allowing for greater mobility and adaptability on the battlefield. This approach would remain the standard until the era of Alexander the Great. With Ur-Zababa and Lugalzagesi out of his way, Sargon declared himself king of Kish and quickly conquered the Sumerian region. Thus, Sargon's dominance over the Sumerian cities marked the end of Sumerian civilization and the beginning of Akkadian civilization, as it is important to remember that Sargon was not Sumerian but a Semite, an Akkadian. After the conquest of Sumer, Sargon founded a capital for his new empire on the banks of the Euphrates, Akkad. Although it has never been located, it is believed to have been situated close to what would later become Babylon. By founding this new capital, Sargon positioned the political and administrative center at the very heart of Mesopotamia. With the Mesopotamian plain under his control, Sargon set out to build an empire that would extend beyond Sumer. He successfully led his troops through campaign after campaign, with one tablet noting, Sargon, the king of Kish, triumphed in 34 battles. Sargon crossed the Tigris and conquered the land of the Elamites, advancing northward to the city of Mari, which he took. He then continued his expansion into the territory of the Amorites, a nomadic Semitic tribe, and moved along the Tigris to conquer the city of Ashur. He pressed on with his campaigns northward, capturing Nineveh, and possibly even invaded Asia Minor. It is also believed that he reached the Mediterranean Sea and may have conquered Cyprus. He even sent ships as far as India for trade. Sargon expanded his empire to the Lebanon and the Taurus Mountains in Turkey, and possibly beyond. Due to his conquests and the policy of territorial expansion, Sargon earned the title, the one who has traversed the four regions, referring to his domination over the north, south, east, and west. This title, Lord of the Four Corners of the World, would later be used more than 2,000 years after Sargon by Darius III, who faced and was ultimately defeated by Alexander the Great. Such was the significance of Sargon's legacy. But building an empire is one thing, maintaining its stability is quite another. Nevertheless, Sargon demonstrated to be just as skilled in governance as he had been in military conquest. To maintain his control over the vast empire, Sargon placed his most trusted men in key positions in various cities. The citizens of Akkad, as referred to in a later Babylonian text, were the governors and administrators of over 65 cities. When Sargon took a city, it became an Akkadian stronghold, with Akkadian officials and troops. This allowed Sargon to consolidate tighter control over the different regions of the empire. The Sumerians and other conquered peoples soon found themselves living as outsiders in their own cities. The stability that Sargon brought to the Akkadian Empire led to the construction of roads, improvements in irrigation, the expansion of trade, and fostered the advancement of the arts and sciences. This empire also established the first postal system, in which clay tablets with cuneiform writing were wrapped in external clay envelopes marked with the recipient's name and address and the sender's seal. These letters could only be opened by the person they were addressed to, as there was no way to open the clay envelope without breaking it, ensuring privacy in correspondence. Additionally, the Akkadian Empire was a pioneer in the use of bureaucracy and large-scale administration, setting the foundation for future rulers and kingdoms in Mesopotamia. Sargon standardized weights and measures for trade, established a tax system that was fair to all social classes, and carried out several construction projects, including the restoration of Babylon, although it remains debated whether he was actually its founder. He also organized and maintained a full professional army of 5,400 soldiers who, as an inscription notes, ate bread every day with the king in the city of Akkad. It is known that Sargon had a lengthy reign, as the Sumerian king list, a record of ancient Mesopotamian rulers written in Sumerian and inscribed in cuneiform, indicates that he ruled for 56 years, from 2335 to 2279 BCE. But despite presenting himself as a popular king of humble origins and improving the lives of the citizens of Mesopotamia, the people still rebelled against the Akkadian government. Throughout his life, Sargon would continue to face uprisings as city-states sought to reclaim their autonomy and rise against the empire. However, over time, the challenges of Sargon's reign were forgotten, and only his heroic achievements were remembered. For the next 2,000 years, the Babylonians told stories of the kings who rebelled against him and how Sargon suppressed those rebellions, even quoting passages from Sargon's supposed autobiography. "In my old age of 55, all the lands revolted against me, and they besieged me in Agade, but the old lion still had teeth and claws. I went forth to battle and defeated them. I knocked them over and destroyed their vast army. Now, any king who wants to call himself my equal, wherever I went, let him go." Sargon had several children, with his daughter Enheduanna being particularly notable. He appointed her as the high priestess of Inanna in Ur, and through her, it appears he was able to subtly influence religious, political, and cultural matters. Enheduanna is now recognized as the first known writer in history by name. Aside from her literary achievements, she is believed to have been a highly capable and powerful administrator. Sargon I of Akkad died of natural causes in his old age, and while his people already considered him legendary during his reign, his death granted him an almost divine status. After Sargon's death, his son Rimush took over the government and, like his father, had to face rebellions that challenged his legitimacy. He ruled for 9 years. After his death, his brother Mani-Shutusu came to power for 15 years. Although both ruled effectively, the height of the Akkadian Empire came with Naram-Sin, Sargon's grandson, who expanded and consolidated the empire beyond his grandfather's achievements. After his death, his son Shar-Kali-Shari took power, but the empire began to crumble as the city-states sought independence. Shar-Kali-Shari fought against invaders such as the Elamites, the Amorites, and the Guti, but the empire eventually collapsed, with the Guti invasion being the most commonly cited cause of its fall and the beginning of the Dark Age in Mesopotamia. This view was certainly shared by Mesopotamian writers, who depicted the Guti as destroyers of civilization. With Shar-Kali-Shari, Sargon's great-grandson, the Akkadian Empire came to an end after nearly 200 years after its foundation. Recent research suggests that the collapse of the Akkadian Empire was likely triggered by a climate shift that caused famines and possibly disrupted trade, weakening the empire to the point where it could no longer handle the invasions and rebellions that had previously been suppressed with ease. Famine is mentioned in the Curse of Akkad, written around 2047 to 1750 BCE, which recounts the destruction of Akkad by the will of the gods. Whether due to famine, invasion, the anger of the gods, or a combination of all these factors, the city of Akkad fell, the great kings vanished, and the empire became part of the legends that would be told, written, and copied for thousands of years. Without a doubt, Sargon I of Akkad was one of the most important, influential, and fascinating figures in Mesopotamian history. His legend and achievements inspired other rulers in the region for over 3,000 years, while also laying the foundations for countless stories and myths in later civilizations. With his legendary origins, heroic conquests, and wise leadership, Sargon became one of the most remarkable men in ancient history. And his life story is undoubtedly a testament to personal triumph, as he managed to defy the strict social barriers of his time, rising from an orphan of humble origins to become the first emperor in history. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. See you in a new episode. Until next time.